And Ralph De La Rosa, I would like to go ahead and just hand it over to you and just let you go, sir. Good to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, F, and I appreciate y'all having me. So good to be here with everybody. A little funny that I can't see you all, but I got to tell you, I was surprised. I was surprised to see a reverend with a Southern accent utilizing my book at a church, standing with a stone wall behind him. And I grew up in a Southern Baptist congregation. And of course, this isn't a Southern Baptist church or anything like that. I think the day that my book is uh, utilized at such a congregation is the day I get an alert on my iPhone that hell is frozen over and pigs are flying. But really wonderful to be here with each of you. And we're going to start off with a meditation here today. So if everybody could just get comfortable. We'll be here for about somewhere in the vicinity of 6 to 10 minutes. So just make sure you're completely comfortable and you can feel upright and supported, but not too rigid at the exact same time. And if it's comfortable for you to go ahead and close your eyes to step into your inner world a little more intimately, and that's good. You can let your brow become unfurrowed, let your cheeks soften, let your jawline melt a little bit. We're going to do two things here together. One is I'm going to give you a really easy trick for slowing down the mind, slowing down the thoughts, so that you can have a little more space inside. And then step two is really about what we do with that space inside, which is, for our purposes today, opening the heart a little bit. So please bring some attention to the fact that you are breathing, that you're in a breathing body right now. And if you would like, you could start by taking a few deep breaths here. Some of us have gone all week or even all year without taking a deep breath. And then that trick to slow down your mind, which is really about setting the breath in its natural rhythm. And the way you can set the breath in its natural rhythm is by letting go of your exhales. So from here on out, I want you to just let your exhales sort of fall out of the body without very much pushing. And that might mean your exhales are short at first, and that's just fine. But I want you to let your exhales fade into space. Really let go of them. Let the belly relax on the exhale. And start not inhaling right away. Let there be a gentle space, not forceful, after the exhale. And then when the inhale comes, and you'll feel it come on its own, you gently guide the inhale in, and the next exhale just falls out and fades into space, space, space. You feel the impulse to inhale, please follow that impulse. And then the whole thing starts over again. So try that for a couple of minutes and watch for the effect that that space between breaths has on you. Gentle on the inhale, gentle on the exhale, and letting everything simply drop, release after the exhale. And if you would like, you could even direct the breath right into the center of your chest. Pretend your nose is in the middle of your chest, the space of the heart, such that you're breathing into the heart space and out from the heart space. And as you continue to breathe, and notice that you can breathe into the heart and hear my voice just fine. You don't have to work too hard at hearing me. It doesn't have to take you away from the breath. I want you to think of somebody in your life that you love, and it's easy for you to feel a sense of caring for. This person could be human or non-human, living or deceased, teacher, family member, best friend, dog. And then just settle on one person and pretend they're sitting right here in front of you. And you see their face, their eyes. You can hear the sound of their voice. And notice your natural caring, that you care for them, and what that feels like to care for them. And we're going to wish them some things here, almost like a prayer, but really like you're emanating the heart through your thoughts in a way. And the first wish is, may you be happy. I wish for you to be happy. Send that wish to their image in your mind and see what that's like. May you be happy. The next wish is, may you be healthy. The next wish is, may you be at peace. and may you be free, utterly free. And then you can let the image of the loved one fall away. We'll just do one more. I want you to just consider a stranger. This could be somebody sitting next to you, or behind you, or in front of you. This could be your hairdresser or a barista at the coffee shop, and someone who's in your life, but you don't think of them very much. But picking somebody in this congregation that, you don't know them, but you see them on a screen, might be good. Okay, so pick your stranger to work with. Pretend they're sitting here with you and you see them crystal clear. And you probably don't have much feeling towards them, just sort of in the middle. That's fine. But we'll practice offering anyways. So please offer these thoughts. May you be happy. I wish for you to be healthy. May you be at peace. And may you be free. May you feel free inside. Okay, just notice how that feels to have been mentally generous for a little while. You just take a breath and gently peel open your eyes and come back. So thank you all so much. And like I said, I chose to be here. I was really honored to find out that Unity of Madison was exploring my book, and I had to write to Evan and some of the folks in the congregation to express a desire to come in and accept their invitation to come and be here. Because it's such an honor, frankly, and to have this Buddhist wisdom, this psychological wisdom, these things that are typically considered outside of Christianity, incorporated into what is a very accepting and progressive congregation. But I'm a comparative religions geek myself, and I think even as a Buddhist, a lot of other religions and philosophies really helped me to understand Buddhism sometimes better than Buddhist teachings do. And but I was thinking about that, how is it that a religious congregation came to um, really want to explore and embrace a set of teachings, this book that is not religious, is definitely spiritual, but not religious in nature. And in speaking to Evan for the first time, he said, well, we're a pretty progressive congregation. We are in a city, we're in a major metropolitan area. And that's just a fact about our society, isn't it? That major metropolitan areas tend to lean liberal and progressive. Rural areas tend to lean conservative. And why is that? One of the reasons we could say is that liberals tend to move to cities. That's true. But also, cities tend to be more diverse in population. You have people of different cultural, racial, ethnic, class backgrounds, and what have you, all living side by side and traversing the same communities. And what this means is that when you live in a city, and I lived in New York City for a long time, I now live in the mountains. I lived in San Francisco and San Diego, cities like that for a long time. Um, and what it means is that when you're in close proximity to people who are not like you in some way, right? That's what it really means. It means that you're more accepting. You tend to be more accepting. There's conditions in your life that lead you to be more accepting and more open in some way. In fact, there are studies of children who go to schools that are ethnically and culturally and racially diverse. And what they find is that kids who grow up in these sorts of settings tend to have less explicit and implicit bias in their lives. In other words, they're more accustomed to people who just simply aren't like them in some way, who have different backgrounds, different experiences of walking this earth. And those folks are more likely to be human to the kids who grow up in those schools, right? That are more diverse. Humanization occurs when we are in community with people who aren't like us in some way. And when we aren't, the effect tends to be, and this isn't to judge anybody who grew up in a more rural area, but there does tend to be a situation wherein we're more likely to objectify people who aren't like us in some way. When we're not accustomed, it's when somebody's culture is strange to us, when somebody's way of life doesn't make sense to us. What we're likely to do is feel like subtly, maybe even subconsciously, not even in our awareness, but feel like that's strange and that's somehow a threat to me. That's somehow a threat to my way of life. That's somehow a threat to my values, that you exist in this way that's different than what I'm accustomed to. And what we do without even having the word for it is we objectify people. Right? There's a great human propensity. It's actually quite natural for us to objectify other people. But when we do that, we lose touch with each other's humanity. What objectification really is it's an unconscious perception, attitude, or behavior towards a living entity, where we reduce them to an it, to an object, or to an animal, to the state of being an animal. And what the effect of objectification is, violence becomes possible. Actually, aggression becomes possible, distancing becomes possible, non-empathy becomes possible, because we will even perceive that it's good to treat another human being as if they're an animal. And you can look to some of the narratives and discourses that are in mainstream media, around, these people are animals. They don't deserve the same rights as us. We hear about this all the time, as if other people aren't living beings. And what it means to open to another person's humanity is, one, we get freed, because to live in a state where you're objectifying other people and using that as a basis to distance yourself or even hate them it's really its own punishment. It's a state of suffering. And when we open to other people's humanity, it's a very challenging and vulnerable disposition, honestly. But it's a mental, emotional, and spiritual position that somebody else is truly alive, that the person sitting right next to you, we pass people on the street or encounter people in our communities all the time without even having a thought that this is a human being who has life bubbling up inside of them all the time, and a million thoughts and a million fever dreams and fantasies and nightmares and wounds and anxieties about their bank accounts and their family relationships and what have you, just like you, just like me. And it's so easy to cut ourselves off from each other. And this has global implications. Whether we see each other's humanity or we objectify one another has global implications. It starts in the human heart and it ripples out from there. And so central to the process of opening to diversity, opening to things like social justice, opening to wanting to live in the world as a non-oppressive person, as somebody who does less harm, is stepping out of objectifying one another and stepping into a more humanizing stance, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological way of being. And how do we do that? How do we, it's so self-protective to have a tunnel vision about our worlds. And I'm just trying to do me right now, and I'm just trying to handle my business. Life is hard enough. And you can intuit how in a tunnel vision sort of stance where we're just focused on me, it's easy to shut others out and pretend like they don't matter at all. And what stepping into an acknowledgement of the full vivid humanity that surrounds us, the living presence really that surrounds us, is to take ourselves out of that tunnel vision, to expand our awareness in some way. And how do we do that? Well, we just practiced it a little bit in the meditation there by just considering somebody for a moment, drawing them into mind and beginning to offer them wishes of goodwill. Wishes that really come from empathy, wishes that really, may you be happy, may you feel safe, may you feel healthy, really acknowledges that, this, like Philo said, that everyone around us is fighting a great battle that we know nothing about. And we did that very briefly. We sunk into a very, very short taste of that. But what that comes from is a formal meditation practice known as metta or Maitri. That comes from India, that was taught directly by the Buddha 2,600 years ago. And Maitri, or loving kindness meditation, is what Maitri means. Loving kindness meditation is one part of four qualities known as the Brahmaviharas. And those four qualities are love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, or Maitri in Sanskrit, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. Love, to wish somebody well; compassion, to feel into somebody's suffering and want that to diminish somehow; sympathetic joy, which means your happinesses become my happinesses, which is challenging because we tend to get jealous, don't we, when somebody has it better than us. And then this leads to upeksha, or equanimity, a sense of stability and balance, like life is throwing things at me, but I'm able to absorb it a little bit more. But what I want to talk about here, what I want to highlight here, more towards the end, is that this is part of a system called the Four Brahmaviharas. And Brahmavihara is another Sanskrit term. And Brahma means God. Brahma is the creator God in the Hindu trinity, if you will. He is the one who creates the material universe. And Vihara means abode or resting place, the abode of the gods. So hang on to that for a moment, because I want to point out a correlation here. that speaks to us. And that correlation here is a verse in the Bible, Luke 17:21, where Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is among you. But that is a more recent translation. The original translation of Luke 17:21 was Jesus saying the kingdom of heaven is within. And there's actually a big debate on which translation is correct. It's a debate over the original Greek word, which I'm probably going to totally destroy the the pronunciation of, but endosh. Okay. Does endosh mean within or among you? The kingdom of heaven is endosh. Right? So which does he mean? Is it inside or is it in our midst? And what I want to point out here is if we go back to the Brahmaviharas, first of all, that word Brahmavihara, we could say that means kingdom of God, abode of the gods, kingdom of heaven. And these are meditative practices of cultivating love, compassion, seeing each other's humanity, celebrating each other's joys, having balance in the face of the vagaries of life. And what that is these are mind states. Love, compassion, and so on. These are mind states. These are internal states of being that you can cultivate and that you can open to, that you can uncover and discover in contemplative practice. And to be in a state of love and compassion correlates to heaven on earth, really. And so looking at it from this angle, the kingdom of heaven is within. The kingdom of heaven is a state of mind. It's a state of perception. It's an emotional state as well. But here's the rub. In order to practice love, in order to practice compassion, in order to practice sympathetic joy with people, you need other people. We need each other. It can't be practiced in a vacuum. It can't be practiced just on your own. You need your relationships. You need the people who press on you, even the people who trigger you or tick you off in some way or bother you. We even need them. Why? Because to love somebody who bothers you, that's a strengthening act. That's a strengthening of love. That's a strengthening of compassion. And therefore, the kingdom of heaven is in our midst. It's among us. It's both at the exact same time. Kingdom of heaven is an internal state, and it's an internal state that's cultivated in community with others. So it's both. So what I want to say here is, by way of conclusion, and I've lost track of time, so Evan, please let me know if I'm running way into extra innings here, but is questions that I commonly get right now as I've been really talking to a lot of people, mostly online. I live in the Tahoe National Forest right now, and then I get to open up my laptop and hang out with people, and then I close my laptop and I go back to my mountain life. But as I sit with people, both individuals and in groups, over and over again, this question comes up of, well, how do I, okay, so I got that, like, to be on a mission of love, right, is a very high mission. It's really, the gates of heaven are comprised of love, and we can open those gates within. I get that, being a compassionate person, being an empathetic person is a liberated stance. Frankly, it frees me from the chains of animosity, objectification, distancing, and so on. That, like, maybe you noticed in the meditation that when I offer generosity, when I say, may you be happy to another being, I'm the one who's cheering up. I'm the one who feels better. I'm the first one who feels better when I'm generous every time. And that's a little taste, perhaps, of salvation, of the kingdom of heaven. Right? But it comes up over and over again. Well, what about the people who have different views than me? What about the people who do press on me? What about the people who have disappointed me or wounded me? What about the people whose politics I sense threaten my own way of life or even my life itself? You know, and we can talk about that a little bit because it's a complex topic and there's a lot of layers to it. But this is, and oftentimes the answer is I don't know. The real question is, how can you lead with love? How can you wake up respecting yourself in the morning? How can you walk out of impossible situations with your values intact? But I'll tell you, the one thing I do know is that I tend to get the best of people when I offer love. When I offer love, I get the best version of somebody. It tends to work that way. And no matter what's coming back at me from the outside, I also know this, that when I offer love, I get the best of myself. I show up as the best version of myself. And so if we accept that the kingdom of heaven, this wild notion that it's within us and it's among us and that it's really formed by the energy of love and compassion, and we have to accept that God or spirit or true self or source energy, whatever name you have for divine presence, is that presence wants you to commit to love. That presence wants you to commit to seeing the full humanity, to opening to the full humanity of others, and to give our lives to love. And that's the way through the darkness of the forest that we've found ourselves ensconced within, this last year and a half now. The way through it is really to be open-hearted in big and small ways. So I know that there were some questions from the congregation that were fielded. Oh, and I see the good Reverend popping up. Yeah, in the
Well,
office.
thank you, Ralph. That talk was wonderful. I mean, I know that answered a lot of questions that have been, on my heart in different ways, of myself navigating the world. So thank you so much for that. That was on key. Good work. So Ralph, probably one of the biggest questions we got was, it was really more kind of around COVID, and you really kind of almost answered it in your talk, but there may be something you might want to kind of expand on a little bit. Was a lot of people are wondering now, as we go into this post-pandemic, this post-COVID world, how do we navigate that, especially, when there is, not saying that we feel this in the congregation necessarily, but maybe some people do, but feelings of a little bit of animosity and things, we're wanting to get past this and have our lives be normal again. You see people with, maybe without masks and things like that in public. How do you get past those feelings and start to just feel normal again by practicing these teachings that you've got in your book and that you talk about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we've got to accept that nothing's normal. It's just not going to be normal for a little while, and that's okay. We can weather that. I know that we're tired. I know that we're exhausted, but the truth is, we can absorb the hit. For a little while longer. We just have to weather the storm. There's no real, if you argue with reality, you enter an argument in which you will lose. It's like being mad that, it's hot outside or it's raining outside. It's like the rain's not listening, man. COVID's not listening. COVID doesn't care whether we want things to be normal again or not. So can we have a degree of serenity? It's just like this for right now. First of all. And second of all, can we not let that degrade us in some way? In other words, can we not stoop to animosity? Can we not let, in any situation, an experience can either be our boss, our enemy, or our friend. It could be our boss as in it dictates what we think, say, and do next. It can be our enemy as in we rally against it and we fight against it in some way. Or we can make friends, we can make peace with the situation. And we can even ask ourselves, what do I have to learn here? In what ways can I expand and grow from being challenged in this way? because we grow from our challenges, not in spite of our challenges. We never grow when we're comfortable. It's nice to be comfortable and we need those times, but we grow from the times that we're challenged. And so with regards to, people who aren't wearing masks and what have you, you know, part of love is having boundaries too, you know? Part of love is having boundaries. You kind of got to pick your battles. You can't be boundaried against everybody who ticks you off in some way. But part of love is, it can look like empathy and sweetness. Love can also look like, I got to get out of here. Love can also look like, I'm not kicking you out of my house, but I'm not kicking you out of my heart, but I'm not letting you back into my house either. Okay. And we've got to feel into where those sorts of boundaries are needed. And with regards to people who maybe, it's a hot button issue, folks aren't wearing masks in public because it feels like that's denigrating to my health or that's putting me at risk in some way. Or then on the other side, I don't want to wear a mask because I can't breathe in a mask or I'm uncomfortable in a mask. I mean, honestly, I'm 44 years old and I became an athlete at 42. I just learned how to do a front flip on a trampoline. I have this little scar on my nose from face planting on a trampoline. I've been doing that in a mask this whole time. You can breathe in a mask. But, we do have to have compassion for each other. We simply do. And we have to figure out, if somebody's not wearing a mask in a grocery store, well, then I just stay back from them. Or if somebody's asking me to wear a mask, how big of a consideration is it really to have to wear a mask? How big of a consideration? How big of an inconvenience is it really? What is the loving heart inside of you if you calibrate towards wanting all beings to be well, which is one definition of love? What does your own heart have to say about that matter? The final thing I'll say is for me, with regards to these unanswerable questions or these issues in our lives that are so fraught, so complex, is can you calibrate first? Can you breathe into the heart and remember who you are, what your true nature is first, and then formulate your response from there? Because the heart is a compass. The heart is a compass.
Thank you, Ralph. By the way, I saw some of your acrobats on Instagram, and it looked like you did a pretty good job to me. So you did more than what I would have done. I'm just going to put it that way. So good job. Well, Ralph, I want to thank you again so much for being with us here this morning. I know I appreciate it, and I know our congregation appreciates it. So thank you very much, and I will be in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a good day there in Lake Tahoe.
All right. Thank you. Bye
Yeah.
now.
Thank you, sir.